I want to ask all of you here, sports fans, the folks who over the years have gotten more than a little annoyed when you say likable and unlikable, of this show and what it's been regarding the Miami Heat for 15 years. I believe that there is audience here today exclusively to find out how we feel about Jimmy Butler leading the Warriors last night in a way that he plays the entire fourth quarter. He gets a bunch of free throws. Steph is not needed. They beat Milwaukee. They beat Dame. They're beating Dame and Giannis, and they're doing so going through Jimmy Butler with Draymond Green holding Giannis to 0 for 6. Jimmy Butler must haunt Giannis. Giannis must be haunted by everything Jimmy Butler. Draymond Green says, hey, Wemby's out. I want to be Defensive Player of the Year again because he shuts down Giannis. Okay, nobody shuts down Giannis, and then after the game, Jimmy Butler is saying not only can he do that to anybody, he demands that no one help him with it. He does not want any help. He gets insulted by Draymond Green. Old as he is, annoying as he is, still plays defense at a level that is insane.
And he's flying up the Defensive Player of the Year rankings. And odds on, he's second odds on favorite right now to win at plus 650 on DraftKings. Evan Mobley's the only one ahead of it, minus 275. Maybe 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, he wasn't even on the board.
And I'm wondering if to the group here, this feels like if you're an ex in a relationship, you see your ex out with somebody else, and all of a sudden it seems like they have a more passionate relationship than the one that you had. And all of a sudden you find yourself longing for everything that's happening over there because the Warriors are 14-2. And now when Steph is tired, because this part was interesting. So Steve Kerr says yesterday, Steph's tired. He's exhausted. He's carried us for a month. Steph has 7 turnovers in a game. Can't make anything. Says I'm not tired. Says it's my back. My back hurts. And Kerr is saying it's from carrying the team. Now you bring someone in. Jimmy Butler never had something like Steph here. Jimmy Butler, everyone here was begging the Heat to get him something better than Jimmy Butler so then Jimmy Butler could be that on select occasions when it's needed. So when you see that happen last night, your feelings are what?
I don't feel like a jilted ex-lover. I don't. I feel like it's like the Tom Brady quote about his marriage. They put out a joint statement. Our marriage did not fail. It was a successful marriage. I think I'm pretty confident unless he has an Andre Iguodala-type finals that's paired up with a Steph Curry-type finals where he wins an MVP in an NBA finals. He's going to be remembered as a member of the Miami Heat. When people close their eyes and they think of Jimmy Butler, the image that they're probably going to get is him bent over a scorer's table in the bubble in a Miami Heat uniform. He went to 2 finals down here. It was a great time. He proved that he can be the best player on the team that went to multiple finals. And I'm very secure in it, and I'm actively rooting for him to win that championship so that can't be held against his brilliant career.
I think when people think of Jimmy Buffett, I say that all the time, Jimmy Butler in Miami, they're going to think of the burned bridge, which is still smoldering. And then they're going to think, you know what? Jimmy Butler was right after all because he's so fit for that role in Golden State where he doesn't have to be the best player anymore. He did have to be the best player in Miami, and although he had a fairly successful run here, it wasn't ultimately successful, and the Heat failed to make him the second best player on the team. And they're still looking for an elite player who's going to be the best player on the team because it's not Bam and it's not Hero and it wasn't Jimmy Butler. That's the problem with the Heat right now. They're stagnating without a premier player.
Again, though, 11 for 11 from the line, plays the whole fourth quarter, and every play in the fourth quarter is run through him.
Yeah, he's going to be great, I think, for them during this window, and then maybe next season it won't be as great, and then it'll just keep declining. I think he's got one more run in him, and I'm hopeful to see that. I think if they have a good run and he's really good in the postseason, then even though it's part of the narrative down here locally, people will look back on his time, especially if he becomes an NBA champion, and his time in a Heat uniform will be remembered for the Miami Heat specifically failing him, and that'll become the narrative.
The part that I wanted to talk with you guys about, though, because the league has been taken away from Steph Curry. The way that you honor the back end of his career, one of the most amazing things any of us have ever seen anywhere across sports, the existence of Steph Curry. The way that you protect his aging when The Van Gundys say the hardest thing to do in coaching is to coach the aging superstar. That thing in Golden State that features Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler. My question to you guys is, how does all of that age when both of them are unwilling, reluctant to give up who they've always been because they're in their later 30s, and at some point there has to be a diminishment. Draymond Green already at this point is only a defensive player. We laugh at him in every other respect because he is largely offensively washed, but he does one thing as the fuel of that thing, and when it's not working right, he'll punch you in the face. And so that's opposite Jimmy Butler. And so what you have, a lot of people feel this way. Sam Morrill was on with us. This is what he had to say about Draymond Green and just the very idea that he would say that Cat was avoiding Jimmy Butler in a game between the Knicks and the Warriors. And then afterward, the Knicks players were dapping up Draymond Green instead of defending their teammate.
Draymond bothers me. And you said he apologized. He didn't apologize. He gave a Draymond apology. He bothers me. The podcast he has bothers me because he brought in Baron Davis to make himself more likable. He's not likable. He's terrible at broadcasting. He lacks charisma. The way Shaq and Barkley ball bust, Draymond can't. He's not able to do that. He's like the kid who thinks he can ball bust, but then says, like, your mom has cancer. And you're like, that's not a joke that she actually does have cancer. That's like his sense of humor. He sucks. He's mentally ill. If he was a football player, he'd be Antonio Brown by now. He's unhinged. He has like the ego of like, it's like if Ringo Starr was the biggest dick in the Beatles, you know? Like, it's weird that Paul, George, and John are nice, and then Ringo's a dick.
I don't think you can just accuse him of being mentally ill. I think that's a bit irresponsible.
Okay, he's got all his marbles. You think he's not mentally ill?
I don't know. I don't know that. I'm not comfortable just saying that about somebody.
Yeah.
Certainly, the resume has a lot of behavior that's unstable on it.
Yeah, I mean, he's just upset that Rudy Gobert, it's not Rudy Gobert's fault. He keeps winning Defensive Player of the Years, and he just like puts him in a sleeper hold. That's not the behavior of someone who's got it all together. It bothered me that the Knicks dapped him up. I think if Jalen Brunson was there, it would have been a different vibe. I didn't like that.
Not pictured Commissioner Gordon. Dan, first and foremost, let me say I'm proud of you and the growth that you've made over the last week on journalistic responsibility. That's huge. I'm glad that you corrected Sam on saying that wasn't fair to label Draymond Green as mentally ill. That is great work out of you. And also, Sam, I'm pretty sure you'd love Draymond if he were a New York Knick. There's so many of those guys. Like, there's one in Brad Marchand and Matthew Tkachuk, also on the Florida Panthers, that you hate them if they're not on your team. You love them if they're on yours.
But rare for two to be on the same team, aging at the same rate is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
too.
I mean, Jimmy's a different type of player. He brings more to the table offensively. But Draymond, like, he has his role offensively. I get what you're saying. And look, it's working now. We'll see what happens in the playoffs.
I'm not actually even questioning it. I'm just super interested in seeing how all of it plays out, because you've got the thing that made me think of it is I'm assuming that everyone listening to this knows what it feels like to have somebody in your workplace, one person in a workplace who you think, like Greg Cody thinks of Billy Corbin, that guy, that person's a jackass. But when there are two of them in a small workspace, and they're two of the ones in the league that we all look at and say, that's the top of the food chain on like people others wouldn't want to play with. I think it's a fascinating bet that Golden State is making on pressing the gas on, we got a couple of months to figure this out for Steph. We can't even take next year for granted. We'll give Jimmy the extension, but this is about right now. Can we take out OKC before OKC becomes too good to take out?
What's the longest Jimmy Butler has ever been paired on a team with someone that is obviously greater than him? The flash that D. Wade had, no pun intended, in Chicago.
That locker room had all sorts of problems between him, Rondo, and Wade.
He gravitated towards Wade, and like it was the vets against the young guys, but he was still younger in his career, and everybody knew that Dwayne Wade was historically the greater player then. Then in Philadelphia, you can argue that Embiid was going to was the better player on that team, but that was a short-term deal. So kind of blessed in his career. He rubs people the wrong way, but he also has the benefit of being able to do that while he is very clearly the alpha of the team.
But this is what I'm talking to you guys about when I say the Van Gundy say the hardest thing to coach is the aging superstar, because confidence is the last thing to go, and the mirror is the last thing to know. And so Jimmy Butler's not going to concede to anybody. He's not going to concede. But if he's the team player everyone thinks that he is, this is a fairly self-aware, easy genuflect to make. I'm going to Steph's team.
Right.
This is all this. I got my money, and now I'm here to get. I'm here to go 11 for 11 on free throws. And if they need me in the fourth quarter because Steph can't carry us, I'll play the entire fourth quarter and have all the plays run through me.
I think the other thing too is having Steve Kerr in that locker room to kind of like get the tensions down a little bit. Obviously, Steve Kerr does a lot of stuff with USA Basketball, has the ability and has the track record of coaching some of these monster personalities and monster players. And it's like, all right, Jimmy, this is Steph's team. You know that you're coming in, but I can help you kind of fit in the way that you would if it was like a super team like a USA Basketball or something like that.
Except for one very famous example where it didn't work
Well,
out.
I mean, that wasn't his fault, though.